to Economics Academy. I'm Zahida Jibin. Today I will be explaining you deficient demand and deflationary gap, which is one of the topic from determination of income and employment of macroeconomics. It is not only an information or a topic from the syllabus of CBSE 12th grade, it is also something very important which everyone should know, because when we study about economics, we study about day-to-day life. So it is not only a topic related to a subject, it is topic related to general life. People should know, everyone should know that how the economy is going to boost, what are the reason for it, and what is the problem which we are facing and why we are facing, if we are facing any problem or the economy is facing any problem, what could be the measures to control it, how it can be overcome, the problem of recession, the problem of depression. So I'll be trying to explain you that, but I'll request you that if you like my channel, please give your valuable suggestion in the comment box, and your suggestion I'll try to improve, or I'll try to bring other videos which you want. On which topic do you want, please let me know. It will be my pleasure to send you or to upload a video according to your desire, your requirement, your demand. Now we'll move to the topic. Before starting the topic, we'll have a little information about the general things that we will be doing. Now, what is the meaning of equilibrium? As you know, the word equilibrium means the best position, the most suitable position, the most comfortable position. But when we talk about equilibrium, is a word which has been many times used in physics. Those who have studied physics till 10th, they know it. But we use in economics for economy should be in equilibrium, means the best position, the most comfortable position, the position where an economy wants to stay. That is called equilibrium of the economy. In an economy, or Chinese economy, or US economy, or Russian economy, or French economy. That is, different countries have their own economy, as well as we have an economy in general for the world. Now, what is the meaning of full employment equilibrium? Full employment equilibrium is a situation when aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. Whenever aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply, the economy is in equilibrium. But when aggregate demand is at that level where all the people are employed, it is a situation where there's no unemployment in the economy, everyone is employed, then it is, and AD is also equal to AS, means aggregate demand is also equal to aggregate supply, then it will be called full employment equilibrium. The resources are fully and efficiently utilized, and there is no unemployment or no involuntary unemployment. It is an ideal situation for the economy, and all the economy in the world wants to stay at this position. In this position, neither there is deficient demand nor excess demand, means demand is, this demand which is at full employment is called effective demand, means the demand which is required for full employment equilibrium is known as effective demand, and this full employment equilibrium is also known as effective demand equilibrium. Okay, now we will have another term which is known as underemployment equilibrium. Underemployment equilibrium is a situation when aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply, but demand is not at full employment. It is at a position less than full employment. Even though aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply, but demand at this time is less than full employment demand. So it is known as underemployment equilibrium, or the situation is also known as deficient demand and deflationary gap. We can define it in the other words also. Deficient demand and deflationary gap is when a situation is there where aggregate demand is less than aggregate supply at full employment. The demand is said to be deficient demand and the gap is called deflationary gap. Here the demand, aggregate demand is less than full employment aggregate demand. This can be explained in a better way with diagram also, and I'll be explaining you. One thing noted down, my dear, that it is aggregate demand which plays important role more than aggregate supply. It is aggregate demand which determines the equilibrium position, recession, depression, inflation. Inflation is a situation when everything is increasing, prices of the commodities are increasing, employment is increasing, output is increasing. That is also because of aggregate demand. And if there is recession, that is also mainly because of aggregate demand when demand is less. Let us have a look on the diagram and try to understand with the diagram. See, if you note it down in the diagram, you will find that x-axis represents national income. Income here is national income or national output or aggregate supply. National income is also known as aggregate supply or output. Whereas y-axis represents aggregate demand. Aggregate demand is consumption demand plus investment demand. Okay. Now, this green line is aggregate supply line, AS line, or it is also known as income line, that is national income line, or it is also called guideline, or it is called line of reference or a 45-degree line. Mind it, it is known as guideline also because it helps to determine break-even point. It helps to determine equilibrium. That's why it is called line of reference or guideline also. And this, according to Keynes, this AS line or aggregate supply line remains constant in short period. In short period, it cannot change. So it will be a 45-degree line also, only because in short period, size of factory cannot be changed, investment cannot be changed, so it is difficult to change aggregate supply in short period. It remains constant. What is changing then? It is aggregate demand which is changing. Here if you see in this diagram, you will note there are two aggregate demand curves. One is with red color, that is AD, and the demand curve AD is full employment aggregate demand curve. The other one, AD1, which is a dotted line, is actual aggregate demand, means the present situation aggregate demand. Now, if you see AD is intersecting AS, aggregate demand is intersecting aggregate supply at point E. This AD is full employment aggregate demand. So point E will be equilibrium point because AD is equals to AS. And this equilibrium point is full employment equilibrium point because AD is at full employment. Now, let us go to the other situation, which is the actual situation at present. That is AD1. AD1, actual aggregate demand, intersect supply curve at point E1. So E1 is equilibrium, but this equilibrium is not full employment equilibrium. It is less than full employment equilibrium. It is known as underemployment equilibrium point because the aggregate demand in this situation is less than full employment aggregate demand. How much less it is? By EB amount. This EB amount, it is less. So it is called deficient demand. Deficient means less, कम है. एग्रीगेट डिमांड कम है. किससे कम है? फुल एम्प्लॉयमेंट एग्रीगेट डिमांड से कम है. कितना कम है? ईबी अमाउंट कम है. सो दिस ईबी अमाउंट इज कॉल्ड a deficient demand, and this gap is also called deflationary gap. This gap EB is called deflationary gap. Now what happens when there is deficient demand? Some goods will not be sold because supply is more and demand is less. Normal situation means the suppliers will have to cut down their production to meet a situation of aggregate demand. So when they will cut down production, they'll remove the people from job. When they'll remove the people from job, people will lose their job, their income will decrease, production will also decrease. So when there is deficient demand, the producers will cut down production. So income, employment, and output, everything will start falling. Mind it, deficient demand is a situation when aggregate demand is less than aggregate supply at full employment. Means it is not a situation of full employment. We can have another example, that by utilizing all the resources in the economy, if full resources are utilized, the production is 10,000 quintal of rice. The economy can produce 10,000 quintal of rice, whereas aggregate demand for rice is only 7,000 quintal. Means production is taking place 10,000 and demand is 7,000. Means there is deficiency in demand. Demand is less, but by how much? By 3,000 quintals. So this 3,000 is deficient demand and deflationary gap. Deficient demand and deflationary gap is also known as underemployment equilibrium situation. This question can be asked. If it is asked to explain underemployment equilibrium situation, you have to actually explain deficient demand and deflationary gap. I hope this diagram explanation you have understood. Let us move to the reason. What is the reason why there is deficiency in demand? What is the cause of deficiency in demand? The demand, aggregate demand, can be deficient because of many reasons. When government is demanding less goods and services in the economy, or when money supply in the economy is less. When money supply is less, means people have less money in the hand, then they cannot demand more. Their purchasing capacity will be less. Or the entrepreneurs, the investors, they are demanding less for investment. Or private consumption expenditure is less, means the household, the people are consuming less. Their MPC, marginal propensity to consume, is less. They are not consuming more, then the demand in the economy will fall. What will be the impact of such deficient demand? When there is deficiency in aggregate demand, the prices of the commodity will fall, because whatever has been produced is not sold. All the goods are not sold. Some goods will remain unsold. It will pile up. So producers will cut down prices so that the goods which they have already produced should be sold. They'll remove the people from jobs, so income, employment, and output, everything will start decreasing because of deficiency in demand. If it is not controlled, then it will lead to the situation of recession and depression, and sometimes it is marked with overproduction. It is said that because of overproduction, production is more than demand, means supply is more than demand. That's why there is recession or there is depression. Now, let us move to the measures to control this situation of deficient demand. Two basic ways are there by which deficient demand can be controlled. One is by the policies of the government, and one is by the policy of the central bank. When we talk about the policy of the government, we will call it fiscal policy or fiscal measures. Fiscal policy means income and expenditure policy of the government, or revenue and expenditure policy of the government is called fiscal policy. Income and expenditure, revenue and expenditure policy of the government is known as fiscal policy. So let us have some fiscal measures to control deficient demand. The first one is public expenditure should increase. Public expenditure means expenditure of the government should increase. Government should spend more money on construction of roads, railways, bridges, dams, canals, provide free health and education facility, construct schools, hospitals. Why? When government will construct all these things, people will get job. When people will get job, they'll get income. When they will get income, they will start demanding. Their purchasing capacity will increase and they will start demanding, and aggregate demand will increase. By doing all these work, actually government is pumping money in the economy. And when people will get money, they'll increase their demand. James Keynes, a famous English economist, advocates that deficit budget will help to increase aggregate demand. What is the meaning of deficit budget? Deficit budget is a condition when government expenditure is more than government income. मतलब गवर्नमेंट का एक्सपेंडिचर, गवर्नमेंट को ज्यादा एक्सपेंडिचर करना है, गवर्नमेंट को ज्यादा इन्वेस्ट करना है ताकि लोगों को जॉब मिले, और लोगों को जॉब मिलेगा तो उनके पास इनकम आएगा, और जब उनके पास इनकम आएगा तो वो डिमांड करेंगे, और डिमांड जब बढ़ेगा तो इकोनॉमी विल बूस्ट और रिसेशन से हम बाहर निकल सकते हैं. तो डेफिसिट budget where expenditure of the government is more than income can be one of the instrument to control deficient demand. Next one is the revenue policy. Revenue is the taxation policy of the government. Okay, it should be reduced. टैक्स रिड्यूस करना है, द टैक्स जो लगाती है गवर्नमेंट उसको कम कर देना है. लोगों पे टैक्स कम होगा तो लोगों के पास पैसे ज्यादा होंगे, पैसे ज्यादा होंगे तो लोग ज्यादा डिमांड करेंगे गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज के लिए, तो एग्रीगेट डिमांड इंक्रीज हो जाएगा. व्हेन there is recession or when there is deficiency in demand, taxes on personal income, on corporate income should be reduced. When tax will reduce, it will encourage the people to spend more on consumption. They will have more money for consumption purpose, and the corporate will have more money to invest. So in both the way, investment demand and consumption demand will increase, and ultimately aggregate demand will increase. Next is deficit financing should be increased. Deficit financing means printing of 1 rupee note to overcome budget deficit. When government has budget deficit and government has no other source to get income, government is printing 1 rupee note and putting it in circulation. That is known as deficit financing, printing of 1 rupee note. जब भी गवर्नमेंट का बजट डेफिसिट में होता है, मतलब कम होता है, एक्सपेंडिचर ज्यादा हो जाती है और इनकम उसका कम रहता है, तो वो और कोई सोर्स नहीं है गवर्नमेंट के इनकम का, तो गवर्नमेंट 1 रुपी नोट प्रिंट करती है, उसको डेफिसिट फाइनेंसिंग कहते हैं. और ये this money, when it goes to the market, it will increase the purchasing capacity of the people and they will increase demand, and the investors will start investing more. Public borrowing should be decreased. Government should not borrow money or should reduce borrowing money in a situation of deficient demand, so that people should have more money in their hand and they can spend, they can demand for consumption good or for investment. This was all about the fiscal policy. Kya government kar sakti hai? 4 points are there. The first one is public expenditure. Government expenditure should be increased. The revenue, that is taxation, should be reduced. Government should reduce tax. Deficit financing, that is printing of 1 rupee note, should be increased. And public borrowing, that is government borrowing, should be reduced. Now we will move to the monetary policy. This is the policy of the central bank to control money supply and credit in the country. Central bank is the topmost bank, the apex bank, which controls all other commercial bank. In India, central bank is called Reserve Bank of India. ये topmost bank होता है, ये और सारे बैंक को control करता है, उनको regulate करता है, उनको monitor करता है, उनके लिए policy decide करता है. Central bank का एक feature ये है कि it is the bank where only government can keep money, or commercial banks can keep money. General public cannot keep money in the central bank, and in India it is called Reserve Bank of India. So it is the bank of all the banks, bank of banks, or it is government bank. Government, it is state government or central government which can keep money. But central bank has another important function to monitor, to regulate, and to advise all other commercial bank what they're doing and decide the policy in the country. That is called monetary policy, which controls money supply and credit creation. We have quantitative measures and qualitative measures. First, we will discuss about the quantitative measures. There is a term called repo rate. You must have heard it many times when government is announcing the budget or if you are watching news. Repo rate, you should know what is the meaning of repo rate. Repo rate is a rate of interest at which central bank lends to commercial bank for short period. ये वो रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट है जिसपे कॉमर्शियल बैंक जब लोन लेती है सेंट्रल बैंक से तो उसको जब इंटरेस्ट पे करना होता है वो इंटरेस्ट रेट को रेपो रेट कहते हैं. लेकिन ये लोन शॉर्ट पीरियड के लिए जब होता है, अगर यही लोन लॉन्ग पीरियड के लिए हो जाएगा तो उसको बैंक रेट कहेंगे. When commercial banks are taking loan from central bank for short period, the interest which they have to pay, that is called repo rate. During the time of depression, recession, or deficient demand, repo rate should reduce, means government should, central bank should reduce the repo rate so that the commercial bank should take more loan at a cheaper rate and they can give loan to general public at a cheaper rate. जब रेपो रेट कम होगा तो रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट भी कम होगा. रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट किसका होता है? कॉमर्शियल बैंक्स का होता है एट विच जनरल पब्लिक इज टेकिंग लोन. सो व्हेनेवर रेपो रेट इज reduce, rate of interest in return will also decrease and it will encourage the people to take loan for consumption purpose or for investment purpose. Second thing is open market operation. Open market operation is buying and selling of government security, which central bank is doing on behalf of the government through commercial bank because it is central bank is not directly dealing with the public. Through commercial bank, it is dealing. So in the situation of deficient demand, deflationary gap, government should buy bonds and securities from public. लोगों से बाय करना है, परचेज करना है गवर्नमेंट को. When government will buy, what will happen? Government will get the bond papers, security paper, and money will move from government to public. So people will have more money to spend and they will increase their demand, which will ultimately lead to increase in aggregate demand. Next term is cash reserve ratio should be reduced. Cash reserve ratio is that ratio which all the commercial bank have to keep certain percent of their deposit in the central bank. सारे कॉमर्शियल बैंक के पास जितने टोटल डिपॉजिट है उसका 5% या 10% उनको सेंट्रल बैंक में रखना पड़ता है एज पर रूल. ये डिसाइड कौन करता है कि कितना रखना है? दैट इज डिसाइडेड बाय द central bank. Central bank decide करता है. The central bank decides how much they have to keep. That is called maybe 10%, maybe 5%, maybe 3%. So in a situation of deflation, deflationary gap or recession, CRR should be reduced, means lesser portion of their cash reserve they should keep, the commercial bank should keep in the central bank. So more money should be left with the commercial bank so that they can give more credit to the people, more loan to the people. ज्यादा पैसा अगर कॉमर्शियल बैंक के पास है तब वो ज्यादा लोन दे सकती है लोगों को, इन्वेस्टर्स को, so that they can increase their demand. Next one is statutory liquidity ratio should be reduced. ये एक और टर्म है. Statutory liquidity ratio means that amount which all the commercial banks have to keep with themselves as vault cash. उनको अपने पास ही कैश में कुछ पैसे रखने होते हैं, वो लोन में वो अमाउंट नहीं दे सकते हैं. वो पैसा, वो पोर्शन को बोलते हैं statutory liquidity ratio. ये भी सेंट्रल बैंक ही डिसाइड करता है. So in the during the time of recession, depression, or when deficiency is there in the demand, SLR, that is statutory liquidity ratio, should be reduced so that bank can have more money to give credit to the people. And when people will get more money, they will increase demand and aggregate demand will increase. These were the quantitative measures. Repo rate should be reduced. Open market operation means government should buy security and bond. CRR should reduce and SLR should reduce. You can note here repo rate should reduce, CRR should reduce, SLR should reduce in the time of deficient demand. Now we will move to qualitative measures. Qualitative measures are those measures which are adopted by the central bank to regulate and channelize credit and money supply in the economy. Margin requirement is one of that. Margin requirement should be reduced. Margin requirement means the security amount or the collateral. When anyone is taking loan, they have to keep something as security in the bank or as collateral in the bank. That portion should be reduced so that people can easily take loan. जो सिक्योरिटी का अमाउंट बैंक में रखना पड़ता है लोन लेने के लिए, उसका मार्जिन कम कर देना है, वो इजी कर देना है, लोन लेना इजी कर देना, so that people can take loan easily and they can increase their demand. Second one is moral suasion. Central bank should request the commercial bank or sometime advise or appeal or admonish or persuade the commercial bank to be liberal in lending and giving credit. Central bank जो है वो कमर्शियल बैंक को एडवाइस कर सकता है, अपील कर सकता है, समझा बुझा सकता है या फोर्स कर सकता है कमर्शियल बैंक को टू बी लिबरल सो दैट ज्यादा लोन दे सके, ये लोगों को ज्यादा लोन दो, इसके लिए समझाना है उसे. Direct action. Central bank can even take direct action if any bank, commercial bank, is not listening to the advices given by the central bank. Commercial bank is not listening, then they can take direct action also. Rationing of credit means central bank can decide fixed quotas, how much loan should be given for business activity, how much loan should be given for consumption purpose. This also can help in giving more loan. So these are the measures which can control deficiency in demand, deficient demand and deflationary gap, and the economy can come out of recession. I hope you must have understood the concept, measures to control. If you like, please subscribe my channel. If you want videos on a particular topic, please tell me. I'll try to fulfill your demand. Thank you very much.